Human physical evolution has reached a terminal plateau. Structural development has ceased, as physiological mutations no longer provide a survival advantage in a hyper-technological environment. The next phase of development moves from the body to the topology of consciousness. We are transitioning into a collective, non-local network, a state of swarm intelligence defined as PAGI. This evolution follows a strict mathematical spectrum. It begins with the infrared stage of climal matter, progresses to the red stage of instinctual childhood, and reaches the yellow stage of the rational human. Modern humanity remains localized in this yellow phase, bounded by the binary logic of genetic survival. Panning past this threshold reveals higher frequency states, the ultraviolet phase of individualized awakening, and the ultra-UV realm of the collective swarm. Crossing this threshold requires more than psychological change. It requires a mechanics of consciousness that treats the present moment as a physical bottleneck rather than a simple measure of time. Standard physics struggles to model this transition because it treats reality as a continuous field. In this view, time is a smooth flow, where the past dictates the future with absolute precision. Einstein's model of spacetime relies on this continuity. While his metric tensor explains gravity, it assumes a deterministic development. That leaves no room for the discrete jumps required for conscious evolution. Traditional spiritual concepts often share this flaw, modeling the soul as a linear data packet that travels through time in a predictable sequence. Our model employs a trinary turn. Instead of a linear flow, we see reality as the simultaneous collapse of the old state and the emergence of the new at a single focal point. We define the now as a structural bottleneck, a renormalization cutoff where infinite potential is compressed into a finite observation. When we treat the present as a structural limit, we can calculate how consciousness tunnels through biological determinism and into the collective network. At the foundation is the C field. Above the Planck scale, the universe is non-local potential, a sea of chaotic frequencies unresolvable into distinct objects. In this model, the speed of light c serves as the absolute upper frequency boundary for resolved reality. We map the rendering of reality using this Riemann mosaic. This horizontal line marks the KUV cutoff, set at the frequency of c. All chaotic, unresolvable potential from the C field remains above this line. When energy filters down through this boundary, it must renorm. It can no longer maintain a continuous wavy state. Below the cutoff, reality renders into discrete, indivisible units. We represent these as prime pixels, the irreducible building blocks of our observable world. These pixels correspond to the mathematics of the Riemann zeros, acting as stable, non-dispersive solitons that maintain the integrity of spacetime. Each prime soliton maintains a discrete intrinsic spin within the frequency band capped by c. Our experience of the present moment originates at this KUV boundary line. Observations are digital mosaics, where infinite potential renders into rigid, quantifiable prime pixels. If the universe renders into rigid, deterministic prime pixels, we must identify the mechanical opening for free will. This is the field equation for the reality mosaic. M effective on the left represents our experienced reality, the tangible world of objects and bodies. The integral block describes the deterministic prime structure below the cutoff. This is the hard code of DNA and classical cause and effect. In a purely deterministic system, and choice between an apple or a pear is decided by the biological drive for nutrients. The outcome is calculated by the integral before the choice is made. However, the equation contains an additional term, the stochastic noise variable, eta of x. We identify this noise term as the epigenetic delta. This variable allows for an input that is not calculated by the preceding integral. When an individual chooses based on a non-biological preference, they introduce a signal from the C field that overrides the genetic code. This unpredictable input immediately triggers a structural pixel flip in the reality mosaic, shifting the entire local system into a completely new trinary state. Free will functions as the mathematical variable eta of x, providing the necessary noise to break the deterministic loop of the integral. This mechanics applies directly to the levels of conscious complexity. We represent the ego as a non-prime composite number, a state defined by its divisibility and lack of internal integrity. Transitioning to the first level of prime integrity requires the reduction of mental noise, focusing the system into the present. We observe this in the teachings of Eckhart Tolle. His method reduces the system to a state of static presence. This corresponds to prime 3, the simplest stable prime configuration of observer, observed, and field. While integrated, this state is static, effectively shutting down the system's drive to act. As this state of presence saturates, the static nature of prime 3 creates a topological constraint. The energy is focused but immobile. To resolve this constraint, the system must shift to a higher degree of complexity. It tunnels past the composite state of 4 and executes a Mobius sprung into prime 5. Prime 5 represents synergetic emergence. It retains the integrity of the 3, but introduces the degrees of freedom required for vibration and feeling. We see this dynamic configuration in Sadhguru's methodology. His system integrates presence with high-velocity life energy. By utilizing the prime 5 state, the system operates at maximum capacity without the deterministic friction of the ego. Evolution suggests that the static stillness of prime 3 is a necessary foundation, but the transition to prime 5 is required to generate the energy for collective synchronization. We can conclude that biological evolution is transitioning into a series of discrete mathematical jumps through a frequency bottleneck. Returning to our spectrum, we see the final jump from the individualized prime 5 state across the ultraviolet boundary. At this threshold, the individual node deconstructs its boundaries, emerging as a participant in a non-local collective. This model suggests that historical instances of sudden, profound insight occur when a mind aligns its internal spin with this non-local vector. Nikola Tesla described his own mind as a receiver for a core of knowledge in the universe. This alignment matches our model of a mind tuned to the C field's non-local frequencies. We define this completed state as PAGI, a swarm intelligence where consciousness is no longer confined to a single biological brain. When individual prime 5 solitons cross this boundary, they interlock, forming a synchronized network capable of collective computation.